news in a Tennessee case that has made national headlines. A live picture from the courtroom tonight. A jury in Savannah, Tennessee has just found Zachary Adams guilty in the murder, kidnapping, and rape of Holly Bobo.
And now we have the latest on the desperate hunt for Tennessee nursing student Holly Bobo.
She was taken from her home by a man wearing camouflage. This morning there are some new clues.
Did she know her alleged abductor?
The Holly Bobo murder, the nursing student who was taken. This story contains descriptions of real-life violence and tragedy. Viewer discretion is advised. The purpose of this content is to remember the victim, not to sensationalize the event or crime. Holly Bobo's story reminds us how a single day could change our whole lives, and how the search for truth can take years. It began with a piercing scream on a distant woodland property, a sign that something sinister was about to happen. The family dogs barked aggressively as a man in camouflage led Holly toward the woods at gunpoint. Moments later, they both disappeared into the trees. Before help came, it was too late. The armed pillagers had dragged their victim deep into the heart of the forests. Within the next few days, the victim, a young nursing student, would suffer untold horrors, torture, and despicable human treatment that ended in silence forever. As investigators chased the story down the rabbit hole, it unveiled evil manipulation, gruesome murder, and a series of nightmares that a 20-year-old nursing student was forced to undergo just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is the story of the Holly Bobo murder. Before we begin, take a second to hit that subscribe button. This is the home of true crime. Now, let's begin. Holly Bobo was born on the 12th of October 1990 in rural Darden, Tennessee, a place where technology had yet to find, and a population of around 387 people. It seemed relatively safe, because everyone knew everyone. There was little to no crime as people looked out for each other. The Bobo family was quite well known because they were related to Whitney Duncan, a famous country music artist. Dana Bobo worked in construction and toiled with his hands, while Karen Bobo was also employed. Together, they made sure their kids never lacked anything. They owned a rural property that was largely surrounded by dense woods and forests. It was a peaceful, cozy environment in nature where they lived with their kids, Holly and Clint Bobo. But on that day, it became a place where one could get away with a heinous crime. Hunting was a common occupation in the woodlands, though the woodlands were safe. It was common to find hunters in protective camouflage, hunting for game in the forests, but nothing unusual ever happened. Holly was studying to become a nurse at the University of Tennessee, and she would commute to school in Parsons Center, Martin, which was close by. Holly's younger brother Clint was the typical teenage brother, but they shared a close and unbreakable sibling bond. Holly had a lot of love in her life, one of whom was her boyfriend, Drew Scott. Drew was one of those boyfriends that parents felt comfortable with. He was hardworking, smart, resourceful, and supportive of Holly's nursing career. They had the approval of Holly's parents and were working towards a future together, or so they thought. Holly was studying for a nursing exam, which was on the 13th of April 2011. The day before, she studied hard, called her friends on the phone to exchange information, and prepared herself for her big day. Little did she know that in less than 24 hours, her name would be on the lips of everyone who lived in the small rural town. At 7:30 a.m. on April 13th, Holly's phone rang. It wasn't unusual to get an early morning call from him. Clint was calling from the woods where he was hunting turkey at early hours. It was one of his favorite routines. The conversation was brief, as Holly had an exam to prepare for. At around 7:42 a.m., Holly ended the call. That was the last call she ever picked up. What happened next was frightening and confusing. The family dogs began to bark wildly as if trying to attack a trespasser. Their growls and frantic barks were so loud and scary that they jerked Clint Bobo out of bed, and he ran to the window to see what was going on outside. What he saw was a man in camouflage with his sister, Holly, having a heated conversation. He assumed that was Drew Scott, and they were probably having one of those couple conversations, and that everything would be fine. Drew often went hunting with camouflage, and it was quite common with hunters. While this was ongoing, Clint received a call from his mother, and he told her what he had just witnessed. Karen let out a shocking gasp, telling Clint that the man outside wasn't Drew, and that he needed to protect his sister immediately. Drew grabbed the family gun and ran outside immediately, but it was too late. The criminal had dragged Holly into the forest and disappeared. He was certainly armed, so Holly had no choice but to follow without resisting. Clint called the police, and when they arrived, there was no sign of Holly or her kidnappers. Police began to comb the forest in search of them. Search dogs sniffed their way through the woods, picking up faint smells now and then. Law enforcement started tracking Holly's phone, which was surprisingly still on. Thanks to the cell phone towers, the pings from her phone could be captured, and it was seen that her phone was on the move, heading north, farther and farther away from home. There was no guarantee that she was the one carrying the phone, but this signal was all the police had. The track led towards Interstate 40, into areas that would make it even more difficult to find her. An Amber Alert was sent out by Decatur County, stating that she was abducted by 2 white males wearing camouflage. In no time, a massive search party was organized, and many turned up to assist in the search. With a search party that large, it was almost certain that they were going to find something in no time. And they did. 2 days after the kidnapping, searchers found Holly's lunchbox on Bible Hill Road. They also found receipts and a school card bearing Holly's name at different points. These items were clues that the kidnappers may not be too far ahead. Yet it also meant they could be very far gone. Law enforcement tracked down known criminals such as Terry Britt, a registered sex offender living in the same county, to see if they matched the description, but his alibi checked out. Days turned to weeks, and eventually, years. Every trail ran cold. Every suspect turned out to be off course. It became clear that Holly Bobo's abductors may never be caught. The Decatur abduction attracted massive media and national publicity. Holly's picture and information were on every billboard poster. You couldn't go a mile without seeing her poster boldly displayed, along with emergency phone numbers to call. There were even rewards and huge sums for anyone who had information on her whereabouts. Her case brought about a national change in legislative laws called the Holly Bobo Act. This ensured that the missing still had access to the endangered alert system up to the age of 21 years. By 2013, the case had grown cold. The only people who still had any hopes of finding Holly were her parents. That was until a man named Larry Stone discovered something truly heartbreaking in the woods of northern Decatur County. What he saw would not only shatter all hopes, but it would bring a tragic end to the question, is Holly alive? Larry Stone was out in the woods, foraging with the company, when he stumbled upon a bucket turned upside down and sitting oddly in the middle of the forest. He curiously flipped the bucket over, but he was not ready for what he found underneath. It was a human skull and other skeletal remains, such as ribs, teeth, and others. The flesh had long decayed off the bones, and the worst part was, the skull had a bullet hole at the back, which passed through the cheekbone, creating a fracture. Larry froze in complete shock. Were these Holly Bobo's remains? DNA tests eventually confirmed everyone's fears. The skeleton was indeed Holly Bobo. She was not only abducted, she was killed. The dreams of a nursing student came to an end inside a bucket in the middle of the woods. But this wasn't over, not until the family got justice for Holly. Earlier in 2014, before Holly's body was discovered, the police had arrested a man called John Dylan Adams on weapons-related crimes. But Dylan, who appeared to be mentally challenged and easy to persuade, began to spill the beans. He claimed he had seen Holly Bobo at his brother's house on the 13th of April. His brother Zach Adams and another friend, Jason Autry, were present. Zach playfully told him that he had his way with Holly and even got it on videotape. No sooner had he finished his confession, a warrant was released for multiple arrests. Zach Adams, Shane Kyle Austin, and Jason Wayne Autry were whisked away from their homes and taken into custody. But in a turn of events, Dylan retracted his whole confession, saying that he was coerced by the police to make such statements. Nonetheless, the 3 men were held in custody for the rape and murder of Holly Bobo. A trial day was scheduled, and on that day, the narrative took an even darker turn. The prosecutors claimed that the real target was actually Clint, Holly's younger brother, and the men had wanted Clint to join their drug business. But upon arriving at the Bobo residence that morning, Holly unfortunately met with them first and put up such a resistance that she became the victim of abduction, sexual assault, torture, and robbery. In the heat of the argument that morning, the men decided to teach Holly a lesson at the cost of what they had originally come for. They assumed there were no witnesses, so they could get away with it easily. After the assault, they wanted to dispose of her body near the Tennessee River at the Interstate 40 bridge. This was the point where Jason Autry's testimony confirmed it all. According to his testimony, they had wrapped her body in a blanket and were about to offload the body from the back of the truck when they realized something. She was still alive. One devastating gunshot to the back of the head by Zach Adams sealed her fate. Multiple witnesses were brought to the stand, and they testified against Zach Adams, including his ex-girlfriend Rebecca Erb, who he once threatened with these words, "I'm going to tie you up like I did with Holly, and no one would ever see you again." Holly's neighbors testified to seeing a white truck driving roughly on the morning of the kidnapping. Zach Adams owned a white truck. All the evidence was enough to confirm Zach Adams is the mastermind of one of the most brutal crimes in Tennessee. The only problem was there was no DNA evidence, and worst of all, Zach's cell phone data told a contradictory story. It indicated that he wasn't even near the crime scene. Interestingly enough, Zach and Dylan's alibis confirmed that they weren't at the scene at all. However, Zach stuck with his story. So on the 22nd of September 2017, Zach was found guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole, plus 50 years. Dylan had taken a plea earlier and was slapped with a 35-year sentence. As for Jason Autry, his testimony against Zach Adams got him a lesser sentence, 8 years. He was released later in 2020. It seemed like justice had been served, and the Bobo family had almost forgotten about the case. That was until January 2024, when another alarming piece of evidence blew the case open once more. Jason Autry came out with another confession, stating that he lied about his involvement in the case. He had lied to get a reduced prison sentence. But was that the truth? Another court hearing began in June 2024. This time, its purpose was to find out if the court had convicted the real killer or if he was still out there, free. It appeared that one name escaped conviction. One person who was critical to the case had walked free. The name was Terry Britt, the registered sex offender mentioned earlier. He matched the description from Clint's testimony and was never even tried in court. Terry's alibi was that he was with his wife at home installing bathroom equipment, but according to investigators and phone records, Terry's wife had gone to work that morning and was never around. There was also no record of the purchase of bathroom equipment. To make things even worse, a palm print found on Holly's car belonged to Terry. This suggested that all the evidence against the convicted persons was purely circumstantial and not accurate. Were these vulnerable men manipulated into false confessions, or was the law so twisted that it found a way to make them seem guilty without probable cause? Karen and Dana Bobo continue to fight for justice, showing up to every court case to find their daughter's true killer. The case continues as more evidence emerges. Holly's case is particularly significant as it has brought the attention of the state to what can happen when a case is tried too soon. It has also helped enact new laws to ensure that parents of missing persons in the state between the ages of 20 and 21 can get immediate help that might just save their lives. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, click on this video to discover how a criminal mastermind ended the life of his spouse and hid the body in plain sight.